July 3, 1976 at Entebbe Airport, Uganda, Israeli commandos embark on a daring raid, a mission to free more than 100 hostages held by pro-Palestinian terrorists. Dubbed as Operation Thunderbolt, what is more commonly known as the raid on Entebbe has been lauded as one of the most brilliant hostage rescue missions ever executed on African soil. So what led to this crazy situation at Entebbe that could have resulted in the death of 100 hostages? Who were the men behind the heinous terrorist attack? And what exactly went down on July 3rd of 1976? In this video, I'm going to be sharing the details of one of the most incredible military operations in African history. Be sure to watch till the end.
Welcome to another episode of the Untold Tales of Africa.
The events that would lead up to the raid on Entebbe began on Sunday, June 27, 1976, when an Air France Airbus aircraft was hijacked by terrorists on its way from Tel Aviv to Paris. As the news of the hijack reached Israeli Premier Yitzhak Rabin, he immediately set up an emergency committee and directed the anti-terrorist unit of the Israeli Defense Forces to wait at the Ben Gurion airport in Tel Aviv, anticipating that the hijacked plane could be redirected to Israel. But the terrorists had other ideas. First, they flew to Benghazi, Libya, where they released a female hostage after she faked a miscarriage. At Benghazi, they refueled the plane and took off to an unknown destination, carrying along with them 253 passengers and a crew aboard the plane. Thanks to intel provided by the released female hostage, authorities could now identify the hijackers. There were 4 in all, 3 men and 1 woman. 2 of the terrorists were members of the Liberation of Palestine, a terrorist organization led by a man named Wadi Haddad who had sworn to the destruction of the Israeli state. The other 2 men, Wilfred Bose and Biget Kuhlmann, were founding members of the left-wing West German terrorist organization known as Revolutionary Cells. The hijackers had found a common enemy in Israel and decided to use this hijacking to pursue their agenda. At 3 a.m. the following day, the plane landed at Entebbe Airport in Uganda. There, the hijackers were joined by 3 armed Palestinian terrorists. The then president of Uganda, Idi Amin, who was also in league with Wadi Haddad and was aware of the plot all along, chose not to intervene in the situation. Instead, he sent his soldiers to help guard the hostages after they were taken off the plane and put into the departure lounge of the airport's old terminal. Later that day, President Idi Amin would arrive at the airport and speak to the hostages, declaring to them, "I know you are innocent, but the guilty one is your government." On the 3rd day of the hijack, Tuesday, June 29th, the terrorists divided the hostages into 2 groups. On one side was a group of Israelis and on the other side was a group of non-Israelis. They also informed the hostages that they would be releasing the most vulnerable hostages the following day for, quote, humanitarian reasons. That day, the terrorists made their demands known to the Israeli government. This included the immediate release of 53, quotation marks, freedom fighters who were incarcerated in 5 countries. The terrorists threatened that if their demand was not met by noon on Thursday, they would begin to kill the hostages. Back in Israel, the government began to consider opening negotiation channels with the terrorists as, at the time, there was no clear-cut plan to rescue the hostages. But later on, Israeli Force Chief Benny Peled proposed a rescue strategy that would require dropping 1,000 paratroopers at Entebbe, but the suggestion was only kept under consideration. True to their promise, at noon Wednesday, June 30th, the terrorists released 47 vulnerable hostages. This included the old, the sick, mothers, and children. When Thursday arrived, the Israeli government was no closer to devising a rescue mission. Now under pressure, the Prime Minister of Israel made the decision to open negotiations with the terrorists, despite opposition from the Israeli's Defense Minister, Shimon Peres, who believed meeting the demands of the terrorists would only promote terrorism. With Israelis' willingness to open negotiations, Idi Amin arrived at Entebbe to break the news to the terrorists while also persuading them to release another batch of non-Israeli hostages and to extend the deadlines to 2 p.m. on Sunday, the 4th of July. This did 2 things for the Israeli Defense Forces. First, it gave them a few extra days to perfect a rescue plan. And secondly, it also confirmed that Idi Amin was also in league with the terrorists. So, any rescue plan without an exit strategy from Uganda was no longer considered. With this, the IDF devised a full rescue plan. The overall strategy was to land 4 C-130 transport planes at the airport, free the hostages, and fly them out the country. The first plane was to contain the unit's assault force as well as 3 vehicles, one of which was a Mercedes limousine, which would be used as a decoy for the operation. The other 3 planes would carry further reinforcements, including armored cars and medical personnel. The entire operation was codenamed Operation Thunderbolt, but the IDF did not have sufficient intel for a foolproof assault. Because of this, the Prime Minister of Israel was unconvinced about the rescue plan. The IDF had to rely on further information that came from the latest batch of released hostages and pictures of the Entebbe airport that was taken by a Mossad agent while in a light plane. The pictures revealed that at the time they were taken, the old terminal was lightly guarded. Reluctantly and with his political career on the line, the Israeli Prime Minister sanctioned the mission, and on Saturday, July 3, 1976, heavily loaded C-130s took off from Tel Aviv en route to Entebbe after refueling at a stop in Sinai. To avoid radar detection and maintain radio silence, the pilots were forced to fly planes at no more than 100 feet in altitude. At 1 minute past midnight on July 4th of 1976, the first plane landed at Entebbe Airport. The pilot reduced power and to allow the paratroopers to drop off electric lanterns for the other planes to land safely. On getting onto the old terminal, the first plane offloaded the black Mercedes and the 2 Land Rovers. In them were unit leaders Netanyahu and Bester and 30 other fighters from the elite military unit. The assumption was that the Ugandan soldiers would not shoot at a Mercedes, especially if they didn't know who was in it. But as the convoy approached the old terminal, they encountered 2 Ugandan sentries, one of whom pointed his rifle at the Mercedes and ordered the convoy to advance, which was standard procedure for these soldiers. However, a panicking Netanyahu ordered his men to kill him. This led to loud gunshots as the soldiers lost their element of surprise. Immediately, the fighters ran onto the terminal hoping to get there in time before the terrorists could figure out what was going on and kill the hostages. What ensued was a heavy gunfire exchange, but by 12:07 a.m., just 6 minutes after landing, the old terminal was secured and the remaining hostages were saved. 3 of them had been mortally wounded by the Israeli bullets during the gunfire, while other terrorists were killed by the Israeli soldiers. During this brief but intense firefight, Ugandan soldiers fired from the airport control tower, and the Israeli unit commander Netanyahu was killed. This man was the brother of Benjamin Netanyahu, who was the Prime Minister of Israel from 1996 to 1999 and from 2009 to 2021. The troops of the other 3 planes secured the airport while the hostages were loaded onto the 4th Hercules plane, which then departed for Nairobi. The operation, which took a week of planning, lasted 90 minutes. In the end, out of the 105 hostages that were at Entebbe at the time of rescue, 101 were rescued. 3 of the men were killed during the rescue, and one of the hostages, who was sent to Kampala Hospital, was later assassinated under Idi Amin's orders. Even though Operation Thunderbolt was marked by hasty planning, some political infighting, and a lack of sufficient intelligence, this rescue mission was one of the most incredible missions ever undertaken in Africa. So, what are your thoughts on this story? Please share your opinions in the comment section below. Kindly give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification icon so you never miss a new video. My name is Asher, and I'll see you in the next one.